the computer.
Awesome. Hey, I see everybody. Okay, thank you guys for joining us. We are live here. I just need to mute my own speaker. There we go. Okay. Barbara, will you just do a quick audio check and check your microphone on the Zoom? So just go ahead and just talk so that I can check and see if I see you. Oh, hold on. I can't hear you on Instagram.
We are live here.
Okay, Barbara, will you talk really fast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I see your microphone moving. Dianna, your turn.
Hi.
Awesome. Okay, everybody is working. We're recording. We're showing up in the Facebook page. We're good. Okay. So those of you watching on Facebook and Instagram, if we look like we're looking all over the place, this is why. Welcome to A Cure in Sight. I have with me Dianna and Barbara, who are going to be sharing their stories today. So give them some love, say hi, comment with any questions, tell us where you're from. So Dianna reached out to me on Instagram and she offered to talk with us a little bit about both of their stories and how the BAP1 TPDS has impacted their diagnosis with ocular melanoma, as well as just kind of like how this has shaped their journey. So really briefly, just because I know that we don't have a ton of time and we don't want to keep you guys here for ever and ever, we do want to just really briefly just talk to you guys about each of their stories individually. So I'm going to have, let's see who's first on the Instagram. I'm going to have Dianna go first. Dianna, will you just introduce yourself here on Instagram, here on Facebook, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, when you were diagnosed, just kind of like go over that little summary that we'll add in a little bit later.
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Dianna. I see some of my friends joining. This is my first time on Instagram Live, so happy to see you guys. So I was diagnosed with ocular melanoma in 2018, so it's been about 3 years. My tumor was wrapped around my optic nerve in my left eye. So I was experiencing blurry vision that came on pretty suddenly. It was about a month before I went to the right optometrist and was diagnosed. I had enucleation in April 2018. So I lost my left eye, but I got a prosthetic a couple of months later. I've been hiking, driving, backpacking, scuba diving. I'm trying not to let it slow me down at all. More specific about the tumor, the diagnosis, it was class 1A, which is really good news, but it does have the PRAME positive mutation, which can be higher risk for metastasis. I don't know if we want to go into the BAP1 part of it at all.
Let's just stop there for a second, and then let's move over and have Barbara introduce herself and her kind of diagnosis and how long it's been, things like that.
Okay, so I was diagnosed with ocular melanoma in 2015, so 6 years ago. I went in for a routine eye exam to an optometrist who recognized the tumor as a tumor and got sent to a retinal specialist like within a week, and within 2 weeks then had plaque therapy. So it was a medium-sized tumor. Back in 2015, insurance wasn't paying for tumor testing, so I don't know what class my tumor was. It wasn't tested. And since that time, I've been followed by an ophthalmologist, a retinal specialist, and have had some interventions to preserve my vision. I currently have 20/40 vision in my right eye. And after plaque therapy, I had some swelling and a droopy eyelid. Those things resolved. From the swelling, I had a cataract surgery and then a laser surgery. And now I get monthly Avastin shots. So.
Hey, crazy. Totally can relate to lots of what both of you guys said. Obviously, I think maybe my journey is a little bit more similar to Barbara's, but I can relate to the whole idea of like what Dianna said. And I'm sure, Barbara, you feel the same way about just not letting this diagnosis hold us back. Okay, so I have those couple of questions that you guys suggested that we talk about. So I'm just going to go through those. And Barbara, do you want to take the first one? Just kind of explaining what BAP1 TPDS is.
So BAP1 TPDS stands for BAP1 tumor predisposition syndrome. And it is an inherited condition. And it causes a deletion of the BAP1 gene. So every cell in your body, instead of having 2 copies of the BAP1 gene, have 1 copy. And it predisposes you to tumors. And there are 4 tumors that are 4 types of cancers.
Oh, hold on. Barbara, will you check your internet connection on Instagram? And I know for me on Instagram, I have to sometimes, I have to just do my data instead of my Wi-Fi.
Okay. So do I have to?
Try talking again. We just have some feedback on Instagram of people saying they couldn't hear you on Instagram. So
Okay.
the good news is we're in 2 places. So it's recording in a couple places.
Can you hear me now?
All right, let's give it just a sec. And I'm watching the comments. Let us know. Barbara just was talking. Let us know if you can hear her now.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see.
I'll continue with the.
Hold on one sec. Will you look on your Instagram? Look on the Instagram page. So this one, and you see this little microphone right here.
Yes.
Check and make sure yours is white and not red.
Mine is white.
It's white. Okay.
Oh, I just muted it. I unmuted it.
Hopefully that fixed it.
Okay, go ahead and talk again. Let's check and see if her volume is back. I can hear, well, you know what? This is silly. I can hear Barbara on Instagram. That means that somewhere on the internet, it is working. So that's good. Okay, so I'm sorry. Keep going. I think it should be fine as long as I can hear you, and then it'll save in the video form and anyone can catch the recording if for some reason it's not showing up live.
Okay.
Okay, so you were talking about it predisposes you to tumors.
Right. So there's 4 of the most common tumor. The most common one is ocular melanoma. The second most common is mesothelioma, and then melanoma and renal cancer. And so that's a little bit about the tumor itself or the condition itself. Do you have anything to add, Dianna?
Nothing specifically, just that knowing this is an inherited condition, I guess knowing, I don't know, that you're predisposed, that your genetics are kind of more at play than like environmental issues. I think when we were both diagnosed, when everyone's diagnosed, the answer, you want to know why, like where this came from. So for us to have like a very specific answer of, you know, where this kind of condition came from. And it answered a lot of questions in our family about all the different cancers that we've had throughout the years.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the BAP1 TPDS is that tumor predisposition syndrome. I'm just going to kind of recap for a couple people live who didn't hear, and that this is something that you learned about through a blood test, like just a regular old through your arm blood test, right? And this basically tells you if you're predisposed to cancers of, is it really cancers of any kind, but they're mostly looking to see if they can locate tumor predisposition for like ocular melanoma, things like that.
I think it predisposes you to certain types of cancers.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so I feel like I remember having some kind of a blood test done I mean, do you guys remember a little bit, I'm sure, and anyone listening can relate to this, where you get diagnosed and then it's like, okay, now we need to have you do this blood test. And now in 2 days, come back and we're going to do this test. And now in 5 days, come back and you have an MRI. And then like, there was just so much going on in that first month that I know that in some ways, like early on in my diagnosis, I didn't kind of absorb everything. So, you learned of this how soon into your diagnosis?
Diana, I'll let you go first because I didn't learn about it until 5 years later.
Oh, wow. So I can totally relate to that. I feel like I signed so much paperwork when I first was diagnosed to enroll me in all these studies, and you can take whatever samples you need. And I don't even know what I signed up for because I was just willing to let them have whatever. But this came, I would say a few weeks after I was diagnosed. The talk of testing happened before my surgery. And it was kind of all done at the same time. I went in for surgery in April, and then I got the results of the genetic testing in July. So it was just a couple months later, but it was a regular blood test. My ocular oncologist asked about my family history with cancer. My mom has been diagnosed with cancer 6 times,
Wow.
6 separate cancers. So there was something there. And my ocular oncologist at Stanford said, we have this great genetics program. Why don't you go talk to somebody there? So they set me up with a genetic counselor. And she knew right off the bat. She heard melanoma, mesothelioma from my grandmother. My mom has had lung cancer, kidney cancer, bile duct cancer, breast cancer, skin cancer. So she heard all of those things and knew it's BAP1. So they sent us for genetic testing. It was the blood test. And they actually test for like, I don't know, 50 or 100 different genetic mutations, BAP1 being one of them. So that one came back as likely pathogenic, I think they call it. And then I had a couple other mutations that they don't know as much about. So they call it a variant of undetermined significance. Because they're not quite sure. So it was testing for a lot of different things, which is cool that they can do one blood test and kind of look at everything with genetics these days.
Yeah, it is really kind of an incredible thing. Okay, and then Diane or Barbara, you said that you learned about it 5 years later. What was how did that end up taking so long?
Well, at the time, we did have a family history of cancer. Both my parents passed away from cancer, but they weren't cancers that sent up red flags to the ocular oncologist. So my sister 3 years ago was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and and passed away. And I just happened to hear a presentation from the Ocular Melanoma Foundation on genetics, and it mentioned BAP1 and listed the cancers. And so I had talked to my physician. He didn't think that it was worth testing for. He didn't think that I had it, but I contacted my sister's thoracic surgeon oncologist through email, and he had his genetic counselor call me and just said that she said the relationship between ocular melanoma and mesothelioma in one family was so rare that just assume that you have it and proceed with testing. So she helped me get the test, and I just had a saliva test.
That's interesting. And I am so sorry to hear about so many of your family that you've lost recently. Definitely our condolences go with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so obviously this is kind of big news. Like this is not small, like that inherited predisposition to really having any cancer, but really specifically to having a couple of different very rare kinds of cancers. That had to have changed like at least some parts of your journey with ocular melanoma. So Dianna, do you want to share a little bit of like how you feel like this has maybe changed the way that you've navigated this, or what you look for, in medical care, in monitoring, all of those different kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's changed my journey with ocular melanoma a little bit. I think we're still looking for the same things that everyone else is in the liver. I'm still fearful about metastasis and all of that. But I am being followed by a genetic oncologist through the Stanford genetics program. And I'm really thankful for that because they're looking not just at my liver or lungs, they're looking at my entire body. I'm doing whole body MRIs right now, which I don't think would be recommended by most doctors. So they're looking at all of my organs. I'm getting skin checks twice a year. I'm getting my eye exams like everybody else. But I think this having this piece of information has allowed them to look at every other part of my body that cancer could, land versus just a diagnosis of ocular melanoma. The focus is so much on the liver versus, the rest of your organs. So.
Okay, I feel like that's a big difference. And I feel like that's an important difference and an important distinction in the kind of the standard of care. So I guess maybe call to action if you are listening to this video and you have not been tested for BAP1. Sounds like it would be worth doing, at least to me. This sounds like it would definitely be worth at least having that knowledge so that you can get the right monitoring, the right care, and be linked up with the right specialists, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of having ocular melanoma and having a family history of cancers.
Yeah.
So you would have to have both of those things to, and probably having a history of the specific cancers related to BAP1.
Yeah.
That would lead to testing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely makes sense. But that's like good to be aware of. And I think it's interesting too that that you have like your care team, your care plan looks different. Maybe not in totally drastic ways, but still like in very, very important ways. So Barbara, you learned about this. You said it 5 years into your diagnosis. And can you remind me how far into your diagnosis are you now?
So 6 years. I just found out last spring that I had the gene. And it felt like it really changed my medical follow-up because all of a sudden I did have a genetic oncologist. I was placed, in the high risk monitoring clinic, and I too get eye exams, skin checks, and CAT scans recently of my chest, abdomen, pelvis. So many more scans and a few more doctor visits.
Yes. Well, I understand the frequent scans and the lots of doctor's visits because someone like I was diagnosed with class 2. And so, obviously I've got every 3 months right now, and I get seen every 3 months by the oncologist, the ocular oncologist, the dermatologist. I think that's it. But that's a lot. It's a lot of doctor's visits. And look at us go. We're totally rocking it. Okay. So would you say, Barbara, that it's changed your journey with OM in any other ways that you feel like are worth mentioning?
I think it changed my journey in that I was feeling pretty comfortable being 6 years out, that, my chances of metastasis were less, although then I had a whole new worry of additional cancers. So I feel like instead of just worrying about cancers to my lungs or my liver, I'm now worried about skin cancers and cancers to the kidney. And then there's some other related cancers also. So
maybe almost kind of like information you are glad to have the medical team following, but at the same time, you almost wish you didn't know it because it makes you that much more aware of your mortality.
It certainly raised the bar a little bit. And I think an additional worry for me anyway, I came from a family of 5 siblings and I have 3 kids myself. And so all of a sudden I was worried about who else had the gene and what risk, what put them at risk.
So as far as your family goes, did you, suggest to your kids that they go ahead and have blood tests or saliva tests done to see if they have inherited the gene, or have they opted not to do that?
So all of my children were tested, and all of my siblings were also tested, and their children tested. Well, not all of them. Those who did not have the gene didn't get tested for the gene. So I think it was pretty important for me, and I kept after at least my children to get tested. And then my other family members were pretty interested in finding out if they had the gene and got tested also.
Yeah, I feel like especially with just kind of the everything that happened with your family, with losing both of your parents to cancer, and then also your sister, that would be a big red flag for wanting to just understand for sure. So I can understand that. So as far as your immediate family's life has this is kind of a two-part question. How has ocular melanoma as a whole, and just having this adjustment with your vision, with your care plan of, being monitored and having all of these different tests, how has this affected your family's life as you see it, whether your spouse or your kids, maybe your closest family, the family you spend the most time with? And then how do you feel like the BAP1 diagnosis has also affected that?
Go ahead, Dianna.
So the ocular melanoma diagnosis, I found out when I was 30. I think it's totally rocked my world, but I felt like I can do this. I felt like this knocked me down, but I'm going to be fine. And then I found out about BAP1, and it felt like we have answers, and I was devastated, obviously, but it was nice to feel like we had answers. And then I think it was 2 months after that, maybe a month after that, I found out that I had 2 brain aneurysms, and just felt like something crazy needs to change. My whole life in that year just flashed before my eyes. So I think 2018 for me, my diagnosis of cancer, this genetic mutation, and having 2 brain surgeries really made me face my mortality at a very young age. When it was 3 weeks before my wedding, when I found out I had cancer. I was on the precipice of my whole life, but I think it's really changed the way that my family and I spend time together. I think it's more precious now, and I think I've really made that a priority. That I quit my job last year because I felt like I needed to be with my family more, and my husband. So I feel like it's totally changed the way that I live my life. Finding out from my mom that none of this was her fault. I think she felt like this history of cancer in our family was something she did wrong. So I think it was really nice to have an answer in that sense. That there's nothing you could have done differently. Was really nice. It's been hard. My twin sister has the genetic mutation. So for her, I think she's happy to know this information, and she's getting checked more, but I feel like we're both 33 and feeling like, not if I will get cancer in the future, but when, which isn't a normal thing to think when you're our age, being young like that. So I think it's really changed our lives, but I think it's changed it in a lot of ways for the better. That I think when you're 30, you're not thinking about, living every day to its fullest, and, having the job that you really want at that time, to spend time with your family. You're trying to get ahead and, build a path for yourself. And, you think I'll retire in the future, and then I'll travel, and then I'll, spend time with family and slow down. But I think it's given me that sense now early in my life, and being able to kind of make those changes now at a younger age, versus it all, changing, later in life.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and for your vulnerability. Okay, Barbara, same question.
Yeah, so I think that like Dianna, I was 57, so I was a lot older. I just can't imagine getting a diagnosis of OM at 30. So I was well into my career. My children were leaving home. They were in college. And, you know, it was eye-opening, but it wasn't, I felt like it was manageable. And then last year, when I was diagnosed with the BAP1, I too made a lot of life choices. I decided I'd retire early and spend more time doing things that that were important to me and my family. So I think that we were very lucky in my extended family that I had one sister and one niece out of all of the people that could have inherited the condition, that there were, you know, it was limited. So I think for those of us who have the gene, it's been nice to know that we can do screening and catch cancers early. And especially for my sister and niece who haven't had cancer yet. So I think it really prioritized that we need to do screening, and that there's a good chance with regular screening that we can catch cancers early and treat them. And I think Diana's mom is probably a great example of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
She really is a living legend.
Okay. Well, like, yeah, I was gonna say your mom's had like what, six different cancers, and she's still here. Like, I mean, you just borrowed her iPad, so I'm assuming yes.
Yep, these are her fabulous dresses behind me.
There you go. Well, and you have like some cool setting on the iPad that made it all mute, the like kind of blur the background. That's cool. Okay, well, do you guys have, I guess this is kind of spur of the moment, and I apologize to put you on the spot for this, but in all of my other interviews so far on the page for Cure Insight, I have been asking if you have a favorite, I guess a favorite song, or I guess we could even say a favorite podcast or like a book, something inspirational that you feel like has helped you. So ideally favorite song, because I love music, but if you don't have a favorite song, feel free to share a book or a quote. Diana, why don't you go first?
I can go first. So there's a song that I love by a band called the Weepies, which sounds sad, but they're really good. It's called Can't Steal Happiness. And I think to me, it just reminds me like cancer and my health, it's like tried to take everything from me, but every day is a choice, you know, to wake up and just be happy and, you know, live the life that you want to live. So that's a good one. I highly recommend checking them out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, Barbara.
And I think one of my favorite songs probably I got from my son, who sends me music regularly, also books and podcasts. But from the Cranberries, Ode to My Family, just because they have been such a great support, and they're the reason why I do what I do give me motivation to go get those screenings and scans, which aren't always all that pleasant. So
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Okay, I'm just checking through to make sure I didn't miss any questions. We did have one question over on Facebook that I saw. Debbie asked if insurance paid for your genetic testing.
They do not pay for it. But the company that did my genetic testing, they kind of ensure that either the insurance will pay for it or they will pay for it. So I signed like a release kind of on my behalf saying that they could fight the insurance company. And I think they did for like a year, and then they ended up eating it. And I think it was between like $7,000 and $8,000.
Wow. That's crazy.
My insurance did pay for it. And I'm not sure why, just maybe because I had the positive history. And then the genetic testing company offered, since I came back positive with the gene, offered free genetic testing to all immediate relatives, siblings, and children.
So it sounds like if you advocate for what you need, that there's hope there, you know, that you can find someone who can help. Would you guys be comfortable sharing the companies, or do you remember the companies? And I guess if you don't know it by name or you need to look it up, that would be fine. But I feel like go ahead and like share the names of those companies that you guys used.
So I didn't use a company per se. I think the process is that you need to go through a genetic counselor and then get referred. So I had the name of a genetic testing company, but the University of Utah goes through a specific company. So that's where I got the test.
Okay.
Yeah, I had mine through the genetics department at Stanford, and the testing company was Invitae. And they offered free testing for my family after I was confirmed with the mutation too.
Okay. All right. Well, we will keep an eye out on Facebook and on Instagram for the next few days. And if I see a question, I will make sure to tag Dianna or Barbara to have them answer that. And Melody gave me some feedback just a minute ago to say that it was kind of echoey over on Facebook. So if it was echoing on Facebook, I apologize. We are recording and kind of trying to mesh all of this audio together to be in the podcast. I'm going to be trying to make that my project as my kids get back in school. So, but if you guys have questions specifically for Dianna and Barbara and they can answer them, I'm sure they would be happy to do so. Do you guys have anything else that you really would like to talk about for a minute, or do you feel like we covered it?
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think you did a great job with the questions. Thanks. And
No,
covered
thank
it
you
really
to you
well.
guys for kind of coming up with your own questions to be asked. So thank you. That made my job easy.
I think our goal was just to increase awareness.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing. And I think that I know I'm grateful for that, like, because now I want to go and ask my oncologist, did you test for this? Because I feel like with the class 2 diagnosis, I remember them doing something like that, but I don't remember what everything said. So, you know, this, to me, this is kind of like a reminder of like, okay, let's go revisit some of the, I don't know, like what would you call it? Just some of the things that happened, you know, early on in my diagnosis. Like, let's go revisit some of these now that I'm kind of out of the fog and it's not so scary and crazy, or maybe just not so new. It's still scary and crazy. Okay.
I think I wanted to emphasize that this is really a pretty rare condition. You know, ocular melanoma is like 6 in a million, and only 1% of ocular melanoma patients have BAP1 TPDS. So it is pretty rare, but I mean,
still worth talking about.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thank you guys for being on. Thank you for your time and your stories, and just for opening up and sharing, and for encouraging our community here. And I guess without further ado, I'm going to end the live on whatever this one is, Instagram over here. And then we'll end the live over here, and we will just say, see you later to the rest of the community. So bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. How do I end? There we go. Oh my goodness. All right. Now we stop recording.